Michael has been involved in the community for several years. He has been an active member of his local homeowners association and has participated in city activities and committees and has been a library commissioner. He has had his own Torrance-based business for over 18 years. Michael had the honor of working on the committee to pass measures Y and Z in November of 2008, and then served on the Citizens Oversight Committee for these same measures. Michael received an honorary service award for his work on measures Y and Z. Prior to this, he served on the Strategic Plan Committee for the City of Torrance, as well as the Mayor's Sun Kel Committee. Michael and his wife, Cindy, are the parents of 3 children enrolled in the Torrance Unified School District. Let's welcome Michael Wormers, the president of the Torrance Unified School District School Board Foundation.
First and foremost, all of you that are worried that I'm trusted with a microphone in a room full of people, you can relax. I've talked this over with Dr. Mannon, so we're fine. You do know who I am. I was elected to Torrance Unified School Board. Obviously, I changed my views on school board. They were very similar to Mark Twain's, but I changed my view on school board and ran for school board. It is an interesting hobby, is one of the terms I use to describe it. It's with 3 kids in the school district, it's the only way I can go about it. I would like to stand by. Okay, Tammy. I'd like to start today in today's event with a very big thank you. All of TUSD's sponsors, both present and absent today, support us. This is done with donations, time, and resources in so many countless ways that it would be impossible for me to mention all of them today. We wouldn't have the time, so I'm not even going to try. I know I would miss somebody, or I would run out of time, or I'd murder a name, or I'd offend somebody, so I'm going to stop and just go ahead and offend everybody and not mention anyone. That's my approach on this. I do want to tell you, all the sponsors, both of those who are there and those who are absent, your donations and your dollars and your time and your effort make a huge difference in our school districts, because I've got kids in school and I can tell this immediately. Like many of you, I've sat in this room for the past 3 years and listened to the State of Education address. We've heard about the budget cuts, and appropriately so, they've been horrific to California. One of the advantages I've got is there were hundreds of school board members before me, there will be hundreds of school board members behind me. I can actually say the words, I was a school board member during the absolute worst fiscal crisis in education in California. The word that Dr. Stabler and Dr. Mannon determined was draconian, and it was at least that bad, if not worse. For the past 5 years, education funding has been cut by almost 25%. Proposition 30 was passed in an effort to balance the state budget and prevent education from being cut any further. This past year, for the first time in 3 years, we did not have furlough days or layoffs. Personally, I was thrilled. This lack of furlough days and layoffs was not due to funding from Prop 30. Prop 30 does not give any additional funding to education. Let me say that one more time. Proposition 30 does not give any additional funding to education. It helps balance the budget so education is no longer cut, as the legislature have to balance the budget in Sacramento. The lack of furlough days and layoffs that we experienced this last cycle was due to the fact that TUSD's management, employees, and school board was very frugal and saved money in a reserve. Now that we're starting to see an economic uptick, we're in the process of actually spending some of that reserve. You saw it in our class size reduction recently mentioned in the paper. We've also given the first pay raise in 5 years to all of our employees. Over the next several months, you'll see more of these kind of changes. As we sit here today, our state legislature is working on a final state budget, which will include an education budget. The governor's funding formula is named the Local Control Funding Formula, or LCFF. You'll discover in education if it doesn't have an acronym, it's not real, so it's called the LCFF. The LCFF is being challenged by lots of different factions as it's a complete overhaul of education funding in California for the first time in 40 years. It's since the Reagan was governor, it's the first time we're seeing a change in education forming. The dispute is due to the governor's desire to increase funding to poorer districts or districts with larger quantity of ELL students. You'll notice the acronym on the ELL students. Tammy? What the governor's trying to do is cut the education pie differently. He's trying to increase funding to LA Unified or Hawthorne as opposed to Manhattan Beach or Torrance. Our own Assemblyman and former school board member Al Marisucci and our own Senator and former City Council member Ted Lieu, along with several superintendents led by Dr. Mannon, are trying to explain the inequities of this formula to the governor. It's an uphill battle, and they're working on it every day. The Coalition of Schools actually has a name. It's a California School Finance Reform and a website, www.californiafairschoolfunding.org. They're about to be sending out emails. Dr. Manning's spearheading this effort. My opinion in California education funding, if there's any one thing I want everyone in this room to take away from today, is the fact, the slide that says we are 49th out of 50 in funding. I can't say that enough different ways. That is the problem we have today. Ted and I were at a talk last Sunday, and I explained it again. We need to give the tools to these legislatures so we can actually increase funding to education. It has to be done. Being 49th out of 50 is embarrassing. In my opinion, the real problem with California education is the overall pie is too small. I believe this is a product of two things. One, Proposition 13, and I'm a politician, I'll go ahead and say it, Prop 13 needs to be fixed. You can stab me in the back of the room later. And secondly, there's a 17-year latency from the time you enroll a kid in kindergarten and they actually graduate from college. 17 years is an impossible quantity of time to think of as a politician when you've got term limits, lobbyists biting at your ankles, et cetera, et cetera. So California is very challenging. I actually have Senator Ted Lieu going to come up and speak to us a little bit more in depth about the LCF and some of the changes that are taking place. He and other people, Dr. Mann and Al Marisucci, have been doing a great fight. So Ted, if you'll come up.
Thank you, Michael, for the great job you and the school board do, and Dr. Mannon for helping lead the coalition to make education funding more fair. So I've got some good news, and I have some bad news that could become good news. So what the absolute good news is every school district next year will get more funding than they did this year. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is Prop 30. The other is we created more jobs in California last year than any other state. Our credit rating went from negative to stable to positive. We now have unemployment at the lowest level in 4 years, and we have a structurally balanced budget with a surplus. Most of that surplus will go into education. Now, the bad news that could be good news. So the governor proposed the local control funding formula, which completely revamped education funding, the goals of which I and many others support. It has two goals. One is to increase flexibility. Most of us support that. He takes all these categorical programs that have restricted funds, collapses them, puts them into one large base grant, gives it all schools. We largely support that. The problem is on the funding side. In addition to this base grant, he then adds two things. One is called a supplemental grant, which says if you are a school district with English language learners or folks who need free or reduced lunches, you'll get more money per student based on the number of pupils you have that fit that category. That's generally okay as well. But then he does this thing that many of us here and other middle-class districts oppose. He picks a random number and says, if you have 50% of those students, we're going to give you bonus money. The net result of which, middle-class districts will get significantly less funding under this formula than districts that have 50% or more English language learners and so on. So Torrance, even though we have 83 spoken languages, even though we have a huge number of English language learners, we don't hit 50%. As a result, Torrance will get less money next year, even though it'll be more than this year, than Torrance otherwise would have if we just did nothing. In Sacramento, that's called a cut. And so we've been fighting to prevent school districts from getting cut in order to implement this. And the most recent update is I think we've got the administration to move. I think they have acknowledged now that they need to increase base grants for all school districts. And I believe that sometime today or this weekend, a revised proposal will come out that lifts base grants for all school districts that helps all students statewide. And then I think we're going to work on trying to change the concentration grant percentage to something different or make it a sliding scale. And with that, we can change a proposal that had dramatic winners and dramatic losers into a system where everybody wins and some districts will win some more. That is more defensible. That's what we're fighting for, and I think we can get there. Thanks.
let me address a misconception. The U.S. does not spend more on education than any other country in the world. We're not even in the top 3. And compared to our GDP, we're at the bottom of the list. We spend less in education compared to our GDP than any other country in the world. But don't let me mislead you. Education is painfully expensive. It's one of the biggest tickets in our state budget. But without it, the United States will cease to be the leader it is today. That's a hugely brash statement, but I work in IT, information technology, and I have for 20 plus years. I work with people from India, China, Brazil, Russia. These people are young, eager, and they relish the chance to prove they're faster, stronger, and smarter than our children. If we're not careful, we will give them that chance. Trust me, we have a lot to whine about. I've actually spent 4 slides talking about the budget, and I said I wasn't going to do that, but it's so prevalent right now. We're in the middle of the LCFF discussion, and it is such a horrible budget, we have to discuss it. Since these cuts started 5 years ago, we've laid off almost 300 teachers, 200 administrator and support staff. The cuts we've been making since the mid-'80s have made it hard for us to keep our classrooms clean. We've got PE classes have over 90 students in them. My daughter's advanced algebra class has 38 7th graders. If you interact with a 7th grader, they got the attention span of a Jack Russell puppy. Imagine 38 of them in a space about 1/3 this room, 6 times a day. So you can see why we actually need to increase funding. Torrance Unified is a K-12 district, and we're a large district. As the slide states, we're 34 out of over 1,000 districts in the state of California. That's a rather large district. And because of that, we have more of everything to manage. More people, more cars, more classrooms, more toilet paper, more computers, just more of everything. On top of that, we're actually educating 24,000 students as we sit here today, right now. We have 24,000 students sitting in front of our teachers in our classrooms, getting one of the best educations in the state of California. On top of that, we do 7,000 to 10,000 adult education students. The entire state of Wyoming only has 2 cities that have more than 24,000 residents. I know, no one cares about Wyoming. We're still bigger than almost half the cities in California, just in the number of students we educate. Consistently, in almost every survey done by the city, police and fire rate is number 1 and 2 in the most important reasons to live in the city of Torrance. He's followed very, very closely by schools or education. I know, as was mentioned, I was on the Strategic Plan Committee. I participated in the focus groups. I've been involved in the community meetings, the neighborhood meetings. I know this to be true. Education is very, very important. When my wife and I were looking to purchase this house, we were in Lomita, in the Lomita Pines area, quaint little area, beautiful homes, very good value, and we drove past Narbonne High School on the way back to Torrance. And because of doing that, we elected not to purchase in Lomita. We knew you get a better value for your home in Lomita, but I knew the kind of school I'd have to put my kid into, and I didn't want to do that. I can't believe it's just location, location, location. It's actually a product of what the city delivers in services, and what we deliver in education is why our home value is so much better than the surrounding areas. We're also closer to our physical city than most other school districts. We align almost exactly. There's a couple small block areas that Dr. Stabler can point out to us that don't align up, but we're almost exactly the same footprint as the city of Torrance. We also have a functional and somewhat getting along joint city council and school board meeting. I'm probably one of the biggest rebels in that meeting, but we do have this functional meeting that meets on a regular basis. On November 9th, 2009, we had the entire city council and the entire school board get together and meet for the first time in as long as anyone can remember, and Leroy Jackson's been around since dirt, so if he can't remember it, it's been around for a long, long time. One of the germs that came out of that, one of the birth of an idea that came out of that was a joint use agreement. When Don Lee was a city councilman, he had the idea of a joint use agreement. He actually pushed forward. We finally now have a signed joint use agreement where we share facilities with the city. The citizens of Torrance are going to gain great value out of that agreement. It's going to take some time for it to evolve, but it's a good functional agreement. We no longer exchange checks between 2 government bodies, which is kind of amazing. No one else that I can find does this. For all of you who don't have kids enrolled in school but have a business or a resident inside of Torrance boundaries, I'm speaking to you. In November 2008, the residents of Torrance passed measures Y and Z, 2 school bonds. These were substantial, over $350 million school bonds. I, like every other resident, was reluctant to vote on it. Who likes more taxes? On top of that, my daughter's school looked pretty good. It was an old school, but it looked like walking to a Back to the Future set. Everything looked like 1962, but it was in still pretty good shape. I got given pictures of South High's locker room and Magruder's middle school classrooms, and I couldn't believe there were actually buildings in Torrance that looked like that. So myself and 50% plus of the residents in Torrance voted on measures Y and Z. Thanks to the resident support, TUSD has begun the modernization of every school site. We have a completely brand new school for the first time in over 40 years, Hull Middle School. All right, slow down, wait. Yeah. We are working in every classroom, cafeteria, and playground. We are replacing roofs, ceilings, and lights. We are painting, landscaping, and putting in new bathrooms. We're also on time and under budget with high quality work. I can speak directly to this because I go out to our school sites and actually see the work. At 4:30 in the morning, I was watching them pour concrete at Hull Middle School. So I know it's good quality work. I used to be in the construction business. The citizens of Torrance can be proud of what they supported. If you doubt that, come see me and I'll give you a personal tour. For years to come, these improvements will improve your quality of life and your property values. Despite a concerted effort by Sacramento and the federal government, TUSD continues to improve in education. It has also maintained one of the highest graduation rates in the state of 97%. Sorry, Frank, I'm not looking for applause. I know you told me to slow down, but I'm not any good at this. Overall, we continue to deliver student growth and success in all measurable areas. And we're also instituted a college-going culture with the intention of students who would not traditionally move towards college be given the tools and the training to actually enter college and earn a degree. We're also embracing technology in all areas of our organization. One of the areas that showed up that we didn't expect it is we've actually seen the paper budgets at our high school drop by 50% because we're doing more stuff online. Thanks to the Torrance Education Foundation, the one sponsor I will mention, because they have donated $2.5 million over the past 3 years to TUSD, we have Wi-Fi at all of our campuses, we have a new tech center, we have thousands of dollars for training, and we have a new Technology for Learning lab. So a large thank you to TEF for this. Thanks to the required testing, you can see that TUSD has shown improvements over the past years in the API scores. I come from a long line of teachers. My father was a teacher for 35 years. My mother was a teacher. My brother and sister-in-law are teachers today. I had aunts and uncles that are teachers. I've been as close to the classroom as I can get without taking the pay cut and walking through the door. I know education. I know it really, really well. As a manager, I understand the value of testing. It gives you black and white data right now. As someone who knows education, I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, it's the worst thing we've done to education in America in 25 years. We do not need tests the way we do them today. We need to know what we're doing, but we don't need tests the way we do them today. Einstein once said, everyone is born a genius. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll think it's stupid for the rest of its life. Einstein never heard of API scores. Enrolling in LAUSD is not the same as TUSD, and we all know that. We make the mistake of assuming TUSD is the same as Manhattan, or second to Manhattan Beach and Palos Verdes. Yes, they beat us in scores. It sticks in my throat. But they're one-third our size, they're better funded, and have a less diverse population. Subsequently, I believe we actually do a better job of educating, and you get to grow up in a better city. Give me 2 or 3 of these, I'll get it figured out. As an example of education leadership, we're using donations to implement new teaching techniques like the Center for Math and Science Technology, CMAS, and cognitively guided instruction here at TUSD. We've also, with the help of Loyola Marymount, we've also extended this to other schools and other districts. There's an educational tool called the Learning Management System, or LMS. Ours is called eTUSD. It's an online portal that students use to extend their learning day. They log in after they get home. They interact with other classmates and teachers. They have access to content they can use for homework. They can download information. Thanks to open source software and our own efforts, we have our own homegrown LMS. Very few districts have one at all. We've grown our own. We go to state finals in academic decathlons and sports all the time. And has anybody here seen the Torbots? They're impressive. We do a lot of good things. There's almost nothing as boring as someone reading the PowerPoint slides, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to kind of run through these pretty quickly. If we go too fast, say something, Tammy and I will slow down. I do want to read one thing, though. This came from Dr. Stowe. TUSD works to educate the whole child. We develop them academically, socially, emotionally, and physically. Coordinated programs throughout the district work to ensure that all students receive the support needed to be successful in and out of the classroom. I couldn't have said that better myself. We don't just get good test scores, we actually educate the entire child. I know I have 3 kids in classes every day. The elementary school science fair is really kind of a kick. I got to launch film canisters across my patio with Alka-Seltzer tablets with my daughter. That's kind of a rush. So, the toy drive, I think Tammy whipped past that, is actually where we stuff several buses, not just one bus, with toys. And it's done in conjunction with the city and other groups and the Del Amo Center. So, elementary track meet is today. Anybody wants to attend. And we've won awards in our food service preparation. Be aware of that. Let me talk for just a minute about the Sally Ride Academy and STEM. As was pointed out earlier, STEM stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Once again, note the acronym. It is one of our big pushes here in TUSD. We're leaning very hard in that direction. And we get, with the Sally Ride Academy, we send educators off to be trained throughout the country and come back and educate our people so they can actually be ready to take manufacturing and engineering jobs right here in Torrance. ILEAD, we've been talking about acronyms. I got to do this, I really shouldn't. But ILEAD looks like an acronym, but it's not. It's just a name that was chosen because it sounds good on paper. I just couldn't resist pointing that out. I don't have the time and you don't have the patience for me to sit here and cover everything that TUSD does well. I'm going to cut it short, make it easy on everybody. We discussed the actual reading of the slides, and I thought, my God, there's nothing more boring than someone reading a bunch of slides to you. So I've got to ask you, how are we doing at TUSD? Thank you.
All right. Michael, if you can come on up, back up. We have a little token of appreciation for you for that wonderful speech. Come on up. Let's hear it one more time.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Budget cuts have hit the Torrance chamber, too. All right, and Sherry Kramer, we do love Manhattan Beach. I know Steve, okay. Okay. Definitely don't want to piss off the chair coming in. So she lives in Manhattan Beach. I live in Lomita, but I wasn't going to go there with that. All right. So if I can have Shater and Brian to please come on up. We'd like to thank our principals for the day. Again, I said this earlier, that the principals, our business community went into the schools and were principals for 4 to 5 hours, and they definitely gained a lot of respect for the principals, and so we want to thank you, business folks, for taking time out of your busy schedule and for being there for the schools. So if I call your name, please come on up. Mark Applegate, Terry Bickelmeyer, Lori Brandt, Richard Burrell, and filling in for Richard Coggins, Barbara Graham, Rose Doe, Carmen Freeland, Melissa Griswold, Christy Langlis, Dylan Little, Charlotte Melch, Chief John New, Heather Ramirez, Larry Takahashi, Tracy Underwood. I'm going to try this one more time. Natalia Suhachevskaya. Yes!
Real quick, I gave all the teachers at my school, J.H. Hall, a raise, but it was taken away as soon as I left.
All right, thanks, Mark. I forgot somebody. Carla Delgado. Come on up. Did I miss anybody else? Okay, good. All right. Let's hear it one more time for our business community. I just want to know who the principal is going to be the next Chief John New next year. I don't know. Because we're going to, the role reversal, who's going to come in shadow you? That's going to be exciting. All right. Last call for raffle tickets. Do we have raffle tickets? Raffle tickets? Brian, Shatera, Kelly? This will be the last call for raffle tickets. And if I can have a representative from each of the tables to bring up their centerpiece, we're going to be raffling those off. Just put them up on the stage here. If I can have a rep from each of the tables, bring up your centerpiece, because those are being raffled off.